This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
All lines will be muted until the question and answer session at the end. We encourage you to please use the chat function, which is the conversation bubble located in the right-hand corner of your screen, to post comments, ask questions, or if you need any technical assistance during this webinar. You may post questions at any time during the session, and we will be sure to answer your questions during our Q&A session at the end. A wealth of information will be shared this evening, so I encourage you to please grab a piece of paper, a pen, a pencil, or an electronic device so that you have it readily available for note-taking. Next slide. Before we begin our session, I would like to share some background information about our sorority. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is the first historically African-American Greek letter sorority for college-educated women. The sorority was founded on the campus of Howard University on January 15, 1908. Since then, the sorority has flourished into a globally impactful organization of nearly 300,000 members. Our current international program theme is exemplifying excellence through sustainable. Within our broad theme falls several targets. Tonight, we will address our program target number 1, HBCU for Life, a call to action, and our signature program, #CAP, which is the abbreviation for the college application process. And this is why we're all gathered on this webinar this evening, to promote HBCUs and to assist all of our high school students through this application process. Next slide. On this webinar this evening, we have some awesome women from 5 participating sorority chapters. Representing Gamma Delta Omega chapter, Portsmouth, Virginia, we have Miss Fannie Bullock and me, Lakita James. Representing Gamma Gamma Omega chapter, Asheville, North Carolina, we have Dr. Kanisha Smith and Miss Terry Bellamy. Representing Lambda Omega chapter, Newport News, Virginia, we have Miss Karen Bazemore Person. Representing Lambda Omega Omega chapter, Monmouth and Oceans County, New Jersey, we have Dr. Sandra Jordan. And representing Psi Psi Omega chapter, Stafford and Fauquier Counties, Virginia, we have Dr. Christy Murray and Miss Cassandra Chambliss. We also have 5 upcoming #CAP webinars this summer. The registration for each session opens tonight immediately after this session ends. I encourage you all to please register for the webinars because, again, the spaces for all of the sessions will be limited. July 30th, we have strategies to taking the SAT and ACT tests. August 6th, college funding and scholarship strategies to graduating debt-free. August 20th, maximizing essays and letters of recommendation. August 27th, differentiating yourself when applying to colleges. And September 24th, we will have another general college strategies night, but we'll also include facts about HBCUs. As you can see, we have a wide variety of topics that we will cover this summer. The webinars will be free. So again, I encourage you to register so that you don't miss any of this information. Our agenda for this evening will be very informative, but still interactive. We will cover lots of information from the roles of parents, the roles of the scholar, choosing the correct major or degree, navigating the funding process, And as you can see here, many more topics. When our presenter concludes, we will have a quick wrap-up session, and then we'll go right into our Q&A. I have the pleasure of introducing our dynamic presenter for this webinar. Our presenter for this evening is Dr. Christy Chambliss-Murray. Dr. Murray is a national public speaker, an author, and the Chief Operating Officer of Invest in Others, LLC, an educational consulting firm. She has over 27 years of expertise in education, college, consulting, engineering, business, strategic planning, policy formation, strategic communications, program management, and facilitation. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering from Hampton University, a Master's of Science degree in Computer Information Systems from the University of Phoenix, a Master's degree in Business Administration from Strayer University, and a doctorate in Business Administration from the University of Phoenix. After receiving numerous scholarships to attend college, she decided she has dedicated her life to helping others understand the college admission process and find funding to achieve their college dreams. After speaking to thousands of parents, scholars, and others at national conferences and workshops and seminars and webinars, Dr. Murray recognized the need to develop resources with impactful information on how to get accepted into college and to graduate debt-free. To support this need, Dr. Murray published 2 books, which has student workbooks to go along with it, titled College Planning Strategies, I Wish Someone Had Told Me, and College Funding Strategies, I Wish Someone Had Told Me. With the experiences that Dr. Murray has encountered and the level of expertise she has to offer, scholars and parents, I present to you our speaker for this evening, Dr. Christy Chambliss-Murray.
Well, thank you very much, Lakita. I appreciate your kind introduction. Welcome and thank you to everyone who has joined us for our college admissions process session tonight. I am Dr. Christy Murray with Psi Psi Omega chapter here in Stafford, Virginia, and AKAs all across the country, and particularly those who are hosting this webinar. We bring you greetings. I want to first take just a quick moment and give you a little bit of background about why this is important to me, why I'm passionate about college planning. As Lakita mentioned, she already gave you a little bit about my background. When I was in high school back in 1993, my older sisters, who happened to be twins, were currently in college. My mother was working on a master's degree, and my senior year of high school, she and I had a conversation that went like this. Hey, Mom, I went to visit Hampton, want to major in engineering, absolutely love the campus, and I think I know where I want to go to school. And my mother said, well, that's great, but you got to figure out how to pay for it. I think you should go somewhere cheaper and somewhere that's affordable, given that, you know, several of us are currently in school right now. Well, I didn't want to do that. So I knew that I had to pursue some other matters to try to facilitate me getting to the school I wanted to go to. One day I was at high school and had been talking to my school counselor, and she pulled me out of an assembly. And she said, hey, you know, you've been talking to me about wanting to go to colleges, major in engineering, and particularly Hampton University. She said, come to my office with me. So I walked back, and she said, I have the scholarship that just hit my desk, and you should apply for it. There's only one catch. The application is due and has to be postmarked, this is before the internet, by tomorrow. Can you make that happen? And I looked at her, and I said, the question is, can you have my transcript sent out and postmarked by that deadline? So we agreed, mutually agreed to make it happen. I went home, and what most people didn't know was that by watching my sisters and my mother go through this process, I had a system. I had a stack of pre-made letters of recommendation, a stack of essays I could pull for, information that would go into a college application that I could easily package up. And I went home and I did just that, mailed it off. Long story short, I ended up with a full scholarship to go to Hampton University. all because of that one interaction and someone was able to help me. So the reason why I do this is because I think it's important. None of us have gotten to where we are without the shoulders and the help and assistance of others. And we're all here so that we can provide you with the same. I'm really passionate about this, and my vision is that, it's important to reach back to help pull others forward. The other reason why I do it is because I'm in the same boat as many of you. I have a son who's currently in college. He's a rising sophomore, majoring in mass communication, and another son who's a rising high school senior. He's fortunately considering a STEM major like his mama. I'm also learning new things every day about the college admissions process, particularly as we're entering into COVID-19 and the realities of the pandemic and how they're impacting us all in our everyday lives, and in particular, young people when it comes down to their educational pursuits. So as I start, and Lakita mentioned it earlier, I have 2 books that I wrote because there are a lot of things that I've learned that I wish someone had told me, and I want to share those with you all today and beyond. But the first book, I developed 10 strategies to help students get accepted into college. Some of those strategies I'll hint at and we'll talk about briefly tonight. The second book I wrote, it's really all about college funding. As I've talked to people all across the country about getting into college, obviously an important aspect of the conversation is how they're going to pay for it. So I knew there was a need in our communities to make sure that we spent some time and due diligence on college funding. So some of those strategies I'll touch on tonight as well. Now, one of the things you'll notice about my books and about the conversations that I have, I don't refer to students, I refer to students and scholars. I believe that individuals who are in pursuit of academic excellence and continuous learning should elevate the conversation about themselves and consider themselves scholars. Now, first up, I'd like to start with an interactive exercise, or somewhat interactive. We're going to use the chat function. If you see the little bubble with the chat function, we're going to use that to make it a bit interactive. What you see in front of you is a 10-question little pop quiz, sort of a essay. So if you have paper and pencil handy, or if you can just remember some of these answers in your head, that's fine too. But what I want you to do is take about 2 minutes and think about your current situation. Whether you are a junior in high school, rising junior, or rising senior, or if you're the parent of a high school student and you're here getting information, we want you to think about what your starting point is. At the beginning of any journey, in order to know where your destination is, you got to have a baseline of where you're currently at. And that's the intent of this exercise. So think through, just for a few minutes, these questions. What is your GPA, your cumulative GPA? If you're a student, what's your GPA? If your parents, answer these questions about your child or student or scholar. Number 2, true or false? Only students with a high GPA get a scholarship. Number 3, what is your school counselor's name? Number 4, what's the process for obtaining transcripts at your high school? Number 5, true or false? The best time to apply to college is in the spring of your senior year. Number 6, what are your top 3 college or university choices? Number 7, what are your top 3 college majors? Number 8, true or false? Most colleges and universities prefer the SAT over the ACT. Number 9, true or false? Average grades in hard classes are better than A's in easy courses. And number 10, true or false? Social media accounts and your online reputation doesn't matter. So hopefully, as I talk through those questions, you thought about your responses to some of these questions. And what I'll invite you to do is to think about your current situation, and as we go through some of these responses. Now, we're not going to talk about all of these questions because it's really intended to do 2 things. 1, have you think about where you are, and 2, help you think about the gaps between where you are and where you want to be. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and Karen, who's going to help organize and facilitate this discussion, she's going to help me with some of the responses. So if you could I'm going to pick a question, and if you could type a response in, that would be fantastic. I'm going to start with question 2. Only students with a high GPA get scholarships. So if you're participating, please share your response. I'm seeing a lot of falses.
Several
Thank you,
falses.
Kimberly. Thank you, Marlee. Ireland. Jamie. I'm not seeing many truths. And I'll tell you why, because you guys are absolutely correct. Scholarships are given out for many different purposes. Merit scholarships, academic scholarships are certainly one type. But folks give out scholarships for many different purposes based on hobbies, interests, your major, your affiliations, what religions you are, if you're left-handed, right-handed, you name it. So absolutely, the answer to that is false. You should think about that. So regardless of where you are, I know the first question asked specifically about your cumulative GPA. If your GPA is not where you want it to be, don't be discouraged. A, leverage the time you have to improve it. And B, still look for scholarships based on your current situation or your reality at the time in which you apply. I'm going to choose another question. Number 4. Who knows the process for obtaining their high school transcripts? Now, all you have to put in the chat is me, or I did. But I'm curious to see how many of you actually know what it takes to get your transcript. Now, and as you're typing, I see a lot of me's, which is great. Here's what I'll tell you. If you don't know how to get your transcript, you better find out ASAP, particularly if you're a rising senior. It's difficult, and sometimes high schools have a multi-step process. You have to fill out a form. You have to go in, provide that form, come back, pay for each transcript, fill out another form, do part of it online. And the time to find out what the process is not when you need a transcript mailed out. In that intro I gave you earlier, had I not had a process or been familiar with that process, there's no way I could have met that short deadline. There's a lot of me do's. Thank you, Kayla. You said I do as well, and Bryson. Excellent. You guys are ahead of the game with that. So make sure you know the process for getting your transcripts. And if you knew it before COVID-19, I would encourage all of you to reaffirm it with COVID-19, because it's not as easy to go to the high school, and depending on the situation in the fall with going back to school, you may or may not be able to get to school to fill out certain paperwork. So I would encourage you to reach out to your school counselors, even over the summer, absolutely when school starts in the fall, whether it's virtual or otherwise, particularly if it's virtual, and make sure you know what that process is. All right, next question. Let's see, number 5, true or false? The best time to apply for college is in the spring of your senior year. Let's see what your responses are. You should wait till the spring of your senior year to start applying for schools. I see a bunch of falses. Stephanie, Elijah, Alicia, Chris Cobb. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. Tanya Lee, excellent. The answer is false. If you're waiting to apply to colleges in the spring of your senior year, you're likely behind the curveball. All the financial aid is probably accounted for. Many scholarships, especially university scholarships, are accounted for and are already given out, because a lot of universities give out their money on the first come, first served basis. And students that we work with, scholars that we work with, we want you to be ahead of the curveball and proactive throughout this process. And you'll hear that theme throughout the discussion. And let's see, lastly, number 8, true or false? Most colleges and universities prefer the SAT over the ACT. Brandy says it's false. Samaya says it's true. Not to put you guys on the spot, but this is good. May says it's true. What if I told you it's false? And we'll get into that in a few minutes, but what I will tell you is some schools prefer the SAT, some prefer the ACT, and nowadays some schools are waiving both tests. In a normal year, I would encourage students to take both the SAT and the ACT, because you don't know which one you'll naturally test the best on, but you may actually do better on one test than the other. That would be the one I would tell you to get in a prep course, strengthen your scores from, and build on that. So I appreciate your participation. I got to do one more question, number 10. True or false? Social media accounts and your online reputation does not matter during the process. Okay, I see you guys rolling in now. LaShonda says false. Monique says false. CU says false. Elijah says it's true. Nobody cares about your social media account, huh, Elijah? Let's see. Someone said very false. Jay Smith said false. Ireland said false. So here's what I'll tell you. That is absolutely false. How you show up, and I'll talk to you about that. How you show up on person, on paper, and online, all those matter. Nowadays, college admissions officials are actually looking at Googling your name, going to Twitter, going to Instagram, or whatever accounts you're using, Snapchat, and they are absolutely checking to see if you're the kind of caliber of student who fits into their university. I'll give you an example. Even with Black Lives Matter, I've seen and heard of just in the past few months, many instances where university students who are already on campus have made some interesting statements about racial issues and some of the tension that we're experiencing and have lost scholarships. Some have been denied admissions. So you really want to manage your online presence as if it's your own personal brand, because it is. Well, thank you for participating in that interactive exercise. That was really good, and I appreciate everyone's involvement. So I may try to look for some opportunities to do that as we move forward. But as we move forward, one of the first things I like to talk about is, do you know what your roles are? What are your roles? Do you know what your roles and responsibilities are as a parent and as a scholar? We're going to start with parents. Parents, thank you for joining. I love to do these workshops where the students and parents are together because you can have more of a comprehensive discussion. You absolutely should have an active role with your children. You should be objective, keep an open mind, recognizing that you can't necessarily live 100% vicariously through your children in this process. You have to give them some space to say, hey, I want to go in state. Hey, I want to stay, go out of state. Hey, I want to major in X, Y, and Z. With that being the case, keep an open mind. Make sure not only your child has a relationship with their school counselor, but make sure you do too. Sometimes students get roadblocks and scholars, they're not able to get information from school officials as easily. We want to make sure that's not the case during this critical time. Know what's going on academically. So that question I asked on the last screen, what's your child's cumulative GPA? If you don't know what your child's current GPA is, when this is over tonight, first thing in the morning, you need to find out. Every semester my sons finish school, whether they're in college or high school, I'm logging in to find out what their cumulative GPA is. I don't need surprises. I can't help you with what I don't know. The best way to help your children is to make sure you're informed. Take your scholar on college visits. When things open up, take them in person. But now there's a lot of virtual college tour opportunities where you guys can sit down together and actually visit and learn about different colleges and universities. Start to budget if you have not already. I'm curious in the chat function, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but parents in particular, even students or scholars, if you have a budget and you're starting to track college expenses, can you give us a shout out and say that you do? I think that's very important. And encourage your child to stay on track. Thank you, Cassandra. Glad to see that. Anika, great. So if you don't have a budget, I recommend that you start thinking about it. If you're a scholar, I want to talk to the scholars as well, because we make the assumption as young people that it's totally our parents' responsibility, and it's not. You have to own the process and be willing to work hard for what you want. After all, this is your future. As I tell my sons, I have multiple degrees, and I'm here to help facilitate you getting your first, should you desire to help. Keep your grades up, and I tell students this from 8th grade all the way up. I like talking to 8th graders because they're now starting to have high school GPAs and take high school classes, so I invite them into these conversations. Make sure that you're getting involved with your school and your community. I know right now is a little bit difficult with social distancing, but there are still opportunities to contribute even virtually. So find out what those are, and as things get back to normal, make sure that you're assessing your situation and closing the gap if you aren't very active. Spend time on your college aspirations. Start thinking about what you want to major in, where you want to go to school. Use the internet. Use these great phone devices. As I tell my sons, I really didn't give you a phone just to, hook up with friends on social media. You can actually use these to do research and get information. Who knows? So leverage these and use them to your benefit and find out what you don't know. In this information age, the one question I can't stand hearing from young people is, I don't know. If you don't know, it's because you're not trying to know. Use it to your advantage. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Closed mouths don't get fed. If I hadn't asked my school counselor years ago for help, she may not have known what my interests were and would not have known how to help me. Please say thank you to everybody who helps, including especially your parents. Don't waste people's time. You hear me emphasize this multiple times. I don't mind helping young people. You'll ask people to help with money. You'll ask them to help with letters of recommendation, transcripts, you name it. Please remember to be responsive when they ask you for things that will help facilitate you getting what you need. And again, manage your brand. Who you are is your responsibility. How you want to be portrayed is totally up to you. Next, I'm going to pause and say, since we talked about managing your brand, I talked about it's how you show up in person, online, and on paper. I want to talk a little bit about the on paper part. One of the things that I emphasize, and by the way, if you notice on the presentation, at the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the book, College Planning. It'll tell you which strategy, and it'll even tell you the pages in the book where you can get more information on many of the topics I'm talking about. But this is an example of a template that's in the book. I encourage students that I work with to have a one-page resume, or as I refer to it, as a scholar profile. This is to help you to be able to market and differentiate yourself from other students. I encourage students to use it 3 ways. You can give it to somebody who's writing a letter of recommendation. Say, hey, Miss Christie, I'm in your English class. Here's my scholar profile. I'd love it if you could, leverage information from here and help me and I'd like for you to write a letter of recommendation for me. Now, this scholar profile, maybe it could include a picture of you, but that's optional. It could have your information, what you want to major in or thinking about in school, what you've done educationally, your GPA, your SAT scores, any honors or award, volunteer or employment activities you've been involved in, etc. You see those listed here. Someone who received the scholar profile and you requested a letter of recommendation, would they have a hard time? This is another chat question, or an easy time helping to write a letter of recommendation for you? Pop your responses in there. I would invite, and I'm thinking like Samaya says, relatively easy. Brandy agrees. So it's easy if you have something to give people because they don't have to guess who you are. If Miss Christie, your English teacher, has 80 students, I may not know you as well as you think I do, so this would be helpful. You could also attach it to a college application, particularly if the college application allows you to add additional documentation. If the college application says only submit what we ask for, please don't add additional things. But if a college application or even a scholarship application gives you the opportunity to add supporting documents, absolutely add it. I did this first with my niece years ago, and she not only got into the school she wanted, but she ended up with the university merit scholarship too, and she added this to her package. So I tell you this because the more you give people a sense of who you are on paper, this may be their very first introduction into who you are. So use this as an opportunity to really sell yourself. This template is in the book and the workbook, and it's on the website. So you don't have to, I think you can download it from the website and you don't have to create it from scratch. Here's what one looks like when it's completely filled out. It's just like a one-page resume. I don't advise going over one page because then you lose your audience and their ability to sift through multiple pages and their interest level. But one page should be a very high-level synopsis of who you are. Next, I want to move into an important area where a lot of young people and scholars struggle. How do I choose a major or degree? A couple of quick things I'm going to tell you about that. Number one, you can choose a major, and if you feel relatively confident about it as you enter college, Maybe halfway through you decide, maybe it's not for me. Don't be alarmed. There's an opportunity for you to change your major. Or if you graduate from college and decide, you know what, electrical engineering was just really, really not something I'm interested in, don't be alarmed. Many professionals are operating or working in careers where they may have had a foundational degree in a particular major or degree, and they may choose to shift and do something different. Or you could very much end up working your entire profession based on the major or degree you chose. But my point is, don't feel like you're locked in and overpressured at any point where you can't be flexible and adaptive. How do you go about doing that? It starts with you getting to know yourself. You have to start by thinking about, what am I naturally good at? What am I passionate about? What are my abilities? What do I do really well? What are my values? What are outside of my value system? I think that's just as important. What am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do? Get assistance. Ask people who know you well. Your parents will give you some insight. You might not want to take it, like my sons, but they'll give you some insights because they have a unique advantage point of knowing you and knowing that, some of the things that you're very passionate about. Find people that you trust. I would say don't over specialize, but it's totally up to you. This is just my general guidance. Here's why. If I go and get a degree, and I'm just going to make something up, basket weaving, I guarantee you there's a major out there for that. And I'm not insulting that profession. But if I go and I get a degree in basket weaving, and then I decide I want to be a math teacher, I have gotten a degree in something that's so narrow that it's very difficult to easily transition to do something else. So at least consider, how much opportunity does a degree offer to you? I majored in electrical engineering. I'll tell you what I did with it. I did computer science work, computer engineering work. I did automation work, robotics controls work, and eventually moved on to other type of activities. But it was general enough to where there's a lot of room on the playground for me to play on different type of pieces of equipment. So I would encourage you to think about that. If you want to browse different majors, I'm including a link here. Princeton Review has a good college major search site for you to be able to go in and look at different majors. Also, there's a couple of online search tools. What's My Major Quiz, Loyola University Chicago, and there's one on the College Major Quiz on thoughtco.com. And they have quizzes for you to put in things about yourself, and it'll give you some insight as to what you may be naturally or organically good at. Make a list. Make a list of the things that you think and the things that people share with you. So don't be afraid to ask people what you do well or what they think you do well. And ultimately, find something that makes you feel good and makes you want to get up and go to work in the morning, ultimately. Now, also, I'm going to give you a brief 6-step process to help you. The first one we've kind of talked about, doing an assessment for yourself, writing down what's important to you, your activities, interests, hobbies, courses even that you like. And then write down your best skills and your worst skills. And then spend some time writing down, what do you want to get out of your future career? Do you want to work with people? Do you want to help people? Do you want to take care of children? Write down some of those things. Do you want to sit behind a desk? Believe it or not, I've heard I interviewed some students for an internship, and one of them said, I don't want to sit behind a desk every day. So if you know that's not innate to your personality, then really think about those things. Also, research occupations. We've talked about that with some of the search tools I just referenced. Information and give yourself a reality check. Make sure that the careers and jobs that you're thinking about are a good fit for you. Be honest about your capabilities and your interests and your willingness to study and put forth the effort for those degrees. That's going to be very important, and not for anybody else. It's not about what other people think you should do. It's about what you feel comfortable doing as a scholar. Also, match your college major to a career path. Very important. Sometimes we use those two synonymous with each other. Just because I'm an engineer, I majored in engineering, it doesn't mean all I can do is engineering. There's a lot of careers and professions where you may be able to navigate around different career paths. So make sure you think about those, and make sure what you're majoring in will also lead you to the career you're interested in as well. And write those down. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't say that as you're choosing a major, you should be thinking about the earning potential of different educational degrees and professions. It's not about making money. Um, you choose your career and your major for different reasons. And I believe everybody has their own desires about what that looks like. But as I told my son, please pick something that can help you continue the lifestyle in which you have been accustomed to living. It's a huge reality shock when you've been used to having X, Y, and Z easily, and now your income or your earning potential, you love what you do, and that's important, but there's a disconnect between loving what you do and being able to afford what you need. So I only ask and encourage you that you manage both realities and meet somewhere where you can live with and be excited about both. And that's a very delicate conversation, and I've gotten to debates about it. It's not always about money. No, it is not. But you still, like I told my children, I'm happy for you to pursue your passion, but I need you to be able to eat too. And so I think both realities can exist. Now that you've thought about choosing a major, you have to think about what schools. Now, obviously, you want to start looking at schools that actually have the major and degree programs that you just spent time putting on your list. There's over 2,000 colleges in the United States. Some of them fit your personality, some of them fit your interests and goals, and some of them probably won't. You have to think about those things as you're picking colleges. That's why I said earlier to visit schools virtually and in person to make sure the environment, the programs, the people, how they treat you, the culture, all that is a good fit for you. Also, and this is for the students and the parents, please make sure you pick somewhere you can afford. I can't say that and underscore that enough, but it's not necessarily where you want to go. You can want to go to a school that costs $100,000 a year, and your parents are like, look, things are tight, and unless you have scholarship money, I'm not seeing how that's going to be your reality. Unless financial aid, there's some other aid that's going to help facilitate that. But if there's a significant gap between what they're giving you and what you have available, that's called need, what's left over, and you don't have a means to fill that need, then you need to consider, and that's why it's important to have multiple colleges at various ranges and cost on your top narrowed down college cost list. Now, having all 100K schools is great, and if you have that covered with a trust fund or finances somewhere, absolutely fantastic. But if you're in a situation where you've got to be practical about it, please consider having different type of schools that you're applying to. We've talked about visiting, and then rank those things that are important to you. Is it about the degree first, being near home, away from home? Does the campus size matter? Does the ratio of student to teachers, etc.? And then compile a list of your top 5 to 10 colleges. And I think on the next slide, it's going to show you a college admissions requirements list where I'm going to talk to you about, here it is. It really helps you to identify, this is actually the level of importance, where you rank on the left side what's important to you, first, second, third. Then you start to look at colleges that align with what's important to you. And that way you're not spending a lot of time doing research and narrowing down colleges that just don't fit you, your personality or your needs. And then here's the next document. I broke it up into 2 parts, but it's one spreadsheet, and it's another template on the website. But I have students use this. My son used this when we were going through, and it was very helpful. So it has a bunch of columns at the top. You list your schools, the location. You list your schools down the left-hand side, the location across the top, whether they offer college tours, collect information on the tuition, if they want their application mailed or online, etc. SAT, ACT scores, what's their minimal GPA requirement, do they require a letter of recommendation or an essay, etc. But you get the gist here. You want to research all of the schools that you're interested in and put it in one place, so that as you're having conversations with your parents or your parents with your scholars, you can say, well, this one costs X amount. Well, this one, this meets your GPA currently meets this. And it's something about being able to visualize it in one place that's going to help you to be able to make some very informed decisions. So I'll pause and give you a chance to kind of digest everything I've talked about. What I'm going to talk about next is the SAT and ACT test. Now, I'm going to briefly cover this, but do know we do have a session coming up that will give you more insight about this on July 30th. So we encourage you to register for this webinar. But here's what I want to tell you. I normally encourage students to take both the SAT and the ACT. In this climate with COVID-19, I think we have to be flexible with even that guidance, because the tests have not all been offered much in the spring. And I know both the SAT and ACT are making strides in the fall with this. But not all colleges and universities are requiring these tests. Some are not, some are. And so you may ask, well, Christy, how do I know which ones do? You have to visit their websites and do college searches to find out what their current situation is with these tests. Some schools may waive the test and say you don't have to have it to get admitted. But watch the fine print. If you want to be eligible for merit-based scholarships and other funding, they might still require or encourage them to give out their money. So you have to look at each school and make sure admissions and any other benefits to you, understanding what those requirements are. Now, both of these tests generally measure what students are learning in school, and they give you the ability to, they try to assess if you're going to be successful in college. Some of them are, the SAT in particular, it is a little bit of a different design. It has, I think it has an additional math section, and the ACT has a science section. What I tried to do here is differentiate. If you notice the orange, that represents the SAT, and the blue represents the ACT. And if you look at the map that's in the right-hand corner, you'll see that I actually color-coded it the same. Those segments that are orange, that's where the SAT is predominantly taken. The sections in the middle, where it's blue, that's predominantly where you see scholars take the ACT. Here's what I'll tell you. Not all schools have a preference, and many schools accept them both. So don't be discouraged just because you live in Virginia and you wanted to take the ACT. Feel free to do that as well. I would encourage you to do so. And then as you're thinking about your majors and the colleges you attend, let me tell you why that's important before you get into the SAT and the ACT discussion. Because when you get ready to register for these tests, you know what they're going to ask you as you're doing your registration? Well, what schools do you want us to send your test scores to? So if you haven't given that any thought, you're going to get to that and scratch your head and say, well, I just got to throw in some schools. And then later on, the schools you really want to have your test score sent to, you're going to have to pay extra for those. Because I forget if it's 5 or 7, but they will send your test scores to a certain amount of number of schools for free. And then you pay maybe 12, 13 bucks. I can't remember how much for all additional schools. So give that a bit of thought. And generally, it's about 50-ish, a little less than 50 bucks to take both tests, and definitely check the College Board and the ACT websites for updated pricing. But I wanted to give you a sense of it. The other thing that I will touch here briefly on this slide is that they give you the ability to get your actual test score paper back. So you can see which questions out of the booklet, what the questions are, and which ones you scored well on and which ones you didn't. I would encourage you to pay the extra 18 bucks for SAT and 13 for ACT for that when you register. Because as you prep and decide, hey, I want to do some prep work and then take the test again, it gives you the ability to be strategic and only focus on the areas where you're weak. One question I get, surprisingly, is how do you register? In most cases, online, with the computer, the internet, you have to have a credit card or a payment of that electronic payment information available. They're going to ask you questions about your high school codes and courses that you're taking. They're going to ask you for a headshot. Well, not with a background that's pretty much basic. They don't want to see other people in the pictures, but make sure you follow their requirements and provide that information. and then they're going to ask you what colleges you want to send your scores to. It generally takes about 20 to 30 minutes to get all the way through the registration process. Also, I wanted to touch a little bit on what they're doing with COVID-19 because I think that's important. The College Board, who administers the SAT, they're actually offering the SAT test every month through the end of 2020. In the past, they have not done that. So this year, they're doing every month starting in August. So if you may want to check as you're registering, because some students, and I don't know what their criteria is, but their registration fee is waived. So you might want to check to see if your fees are waived to take the test. Also, I know that they're considering proctoring their test in a digital format, which has not happened in the past. But because of the social distancing, there's a lot more flexibility being given to both the SAT and ACT tests in terms of how they take the test. Obviously, getting a bunch of students in a room is not ideal right now. So they're in the process of scheduling tests that can be taken remotely. So pay attention to their website as they will give more instructions for those. And here, this will be in your student slide packet that will be sent after the presentation. But please note that you have to register for the SAT through the collegeboard.org website. And here are the dates that I was able to find so far for the registration for the SAT. And also there's information for the ACT. Again, they're starting and they're opening up more tests too for the fall so that they can allow more students to be able to take the test as well. And I believe I have the dates for that here too. Now, if you see to be determined here and you register for the ACT on the www.act.org website, they have not released those dates yet. So we didn't fill them in because they weren't available from ACT yet. But please take note, these will be in your student slides because we want to make sure that if you're a rising senior, that we're encouraging you to get into that August, September test. If you want to take those and you feel you need to take those for both the SAT and ACT, get in those courses. Now, one of the things that I absolutely like to talk about is plan to take the test more than once. Especially if you're a rising junior. Seniors, you may have a bit more of a sense of urgency at this stage if you haven't already taken it once. But here's why. I would encourage you to take the test as a rising junior and then get in a prep course. And some of those I've listed below with the pros and cons around whether it's online or in person. Right now, not most of these entities aren't doing face-to-face instruction. But I would encourage you to do some sort of preparatory work after you've taken the test. You can do it before you take the test, but certainly after the test if you want to take it again. And make sure that you schedule to take the test again shortly after you finish the prep course. Now, some of these, for example, are like $299 and up. Send me a note in the chat if you'd be willing to pay $299. Say yes or no if you'd be willing to pay $299 or $499 for a prep course. No, no, no. Yes, no, no. Charles said no. So here's what I'll tell you. Keep giving me your responses because I find this interesting. Here's the reason why I say spend the money if you can afford to. We buy our young people things that they don't necessarily need that cost more than that. But we did this, my mother and I did this for my niece years ago. We spent probably about $500 on a prep course for her. And she finished a face-to-face, I think it was a Kaplan prep course, if I'm not mistaken. She took it, maybe it was a 5 or 6 week course, scheduled the SAT right after that, blew it out of the water, ended up with a full merit scholarship because of her scores. Here's what I'll tell you. Do the math. $500 may be a lot of money. $299 may be a lot of money. But she ended up going to Hampton University where it costs $30,000 a year. Can somebody type into the chat what's 30,000 times 4 years? And that'll tell you that was worth it. $500 investment. Okay, Samaya says $120,000, and you're right. And my point with that is $500 on one hand could save you $120,000 on another. And Chris, you're right. HU is high. It's a private school, so you're right. Not all schools are that high, but the point is the more you prepare and invest up front, the more your investment will pay off in terms of lower tuition or graduating debt free. So here are some prep courses that I think are good. There's some that are online, some that are interactive, some that are free. So definitely leverage the one that works best for your timeline, your budget, and how you learn best. All right, and I agree, Karen, the investment, the return on your investment absolutely does pay off. So next I'm going to transition and talk about the college application process. If you're not aware, there's multiple parts of the college application. The application itself, those official transcripts I talked about that you got to get from your high school, writing an essay if the school requires it. Not all schools do, but if it does, you need to put that in your package. Letters of recommendation, and your test scores, which we just talked about. Now, those things are important, and I'll tell you, if they ask you for those things, make sure you have a checklist and you put exactly what they asked you for in your package. Don't shortchange it, because that's the quickest way to get to a denial, and they don't have time to come back chasing down documents with you. Now, if you are a rising senior, and keep in mind, rising seniors, we invite you back on August 27th for our Applying to Colleges session, strategies just for high school seniors. You need to register. What I'll tell you is this summer, before your senior year, is very important. This is where you narrow down your schools, you find out what the requirements are for colleges, pick your top colleges and majors, you start to draft applications, start drafting essays over the summer. Don't wait until school back in, whether you're going virtually or face-to-face, and try to pile on all this stuff in the fall. Because as you see in the middle column here in the fall, that's where you should be getting your transcripts, making sure if you play sports, you've got all things with your NCAA eligibility together. If you need letters of recommendation, start that during the summer and work through the early fall to make sure you have all your letters tightened up. And in the fall is when seniors, and I stress this, high school seniors should be applying to colleges in the fall. And then by the time the winter hits, you're really focused. After you apply to schools, you can take a deep breath and start looking for money if that's what is necessary for you. And you'll start to see your college admissions coming in, and you're actually getting prepared to actually graduate and transition. Now, as you're applying to colleges, it's important for you to know how you can do it. One tool that I want to introduce is the Common Application. They call it the Common App. Here's the link to it. But the Common App is very important because over 900 colleges are members of this one portal. You can create a profile. You can search for colleges, find out all the requirements, who's looking for an essay and who's not, and who has letters of recommendation requirements and who doesn't. It generally opens up August 1st of each year with a new application. So for the 2021 application season, August 1st, this should be opening up. You can do all the research you need to do and apply to those 900 schools through this portal. If you can search for the school in the portal, very likely you can actually apply for that school all through that portal. The beauty of that is once you put in all your personal information once for the application, it will port itself to every school's application. You don't have to fill it out 10 times. So there's a lot of value to that. You can use the Common App for free, even though many of the colleges still require you to pay their application fees separately. So you have to pay attention. And it'll even tell you in the Common App what their application fees are. And about 45% of the schools within the Common App don't even charge an application fee. Now, we also have to promote HBCUs. That's what we're here to do. I'm the product of an HBCU. In the chat, why don't you give me a me if you were product of an HBCU? And put shout out your HBCU while I talk. So students you can also use the Common Black College app. And you can create an account for $35, and you can apply to all those schools for free once you create the initial account. You can select, I believe there's about 55 to 60 HBCUs now in there. You can upload your test scores, you can research colleges there. And so, but this one is strictly for HBCUs. Actually, Matt, the founder, Robert Mason, about a year ago at a conference, an AKA conference, and he's really passionate about the work he's doing with that and wants to encourage all 102 roughly HBCUs to become members, but certainly want to encourage students. I see NSU and the other HU Howard. Okay, all right, Ireland, HU, Hampton University, Prairie View. So excellent. So as you can see, there's a number of us who have affiliations with HBCU, so you have great resources to help you with those applications as well. Next, I want to talk about essays and letters of recommendations, but I'm going to talk briefly. And again, I'm going to put in another plug. August 20th, we're going to give you some powerhouse, more detailed information about essays and letters of recommendation. But here's what I'll tell you. Some colleges and scholarship entities require them, some do not. Follow the directions. If they tell you they want it type it. If they tell you they want it double space it. If they tell you don't go over 600 words, don't give them 601. Use the features on your word processors and make sure you're underneath the word count. Also, when it comes to scholarships, I will tell you that essays are one of the biggest differentiators between students who are relatively similar in other regards and students who they give their money to. Essays give you another unique opportunity on paper to really tell people more about you that they can't find anywhere else. This is where you sell yourself. This is where you don't be shy or modest. This is where you say, I'm Christy, I'm fabulous, I help my community. These are the things I want to do to make a difference in society, and here's why you should award me your money. You want to make sure that you draft your essays early. Like I said, seniors, definitely start this summer. Juniors, no reason why you can't either. Have someone proofread them. Make sure you have some writing prompts on different topics so you can use the content over and over again. But in our workshop, we're going to go into a lot more detail on essay writing that I guarantee you will make a differentiation between your college acceptance and your scholarship awards. Letters of recommendation. You should be thinking now, both juniors and seniors, who can I get to write letters for me? Make sure you have professors, coaches, community leaders you've worked with, people you volunteered with, church affiliated, officials. Anyone can write letters for you. Ask them early. Give them enough time. Share your scholar profile, that one-page resume. Give them a few weeks in advance so that they can write it. Now, I'll tell you what I didn't share earlier was, if you could say, Miss Christie, please write a letter for me. Here's my scholar profile. And oh, by the way, I've already pre-drafted a letter of recommendation for you that you can customize. Now, in the chat, let me know if Miss Christie would say, heck yeah, I'll write a letter if you've already pre-drafted it and can email it to me, and all I got to do is clean it up a bit, sign my name, and send it back to you. Absolutely, Miss Christie is on it. My time is limited. I want to help as many students as I can, just as others do. So the more you help yourself, the more people will help a scholar, will help you. So make sure you give them plenty of time and don't back them up to your deadline. If you need it by Friday, please don't put them under the pressure. And if they tell you, Christy, I need you to send me a resume and this, that, and the other, please be responsive. Less than 24-hour turnaround on it, getting them what they need so they can help you. And please thank them for their efforts. So next, and I know my time is running pretty low, but I'm getting close to the end of my presentation. I want to talk a little bit about funding. We have another webinar coming up because there's certainly not enough time to cover such an important topic in this particular session. But on August 6th, join us again for our college funding and scholarships. We're going to talk about financial aid and how to get free money. Both are important. College costs are high. We already established that from the chat earlier. Go where you can afford and make sure that you're looking at tuition, room and board, books and fees, and other personal expenses you have as you talk about the total cost of what it takes for college. And like this graphic depicts, make sure you know the difference between a public state school where they get funding from the state, in addition to funding that they get themselves, and a public out-of-state where they get funding, but because you're an out-of-state student, they're going to raise your tuition rate higher because you're not from that city or from that state. And then also a private school like Hampton University, Howard University, and many others. Those are considered private schools where the states do not generally fund those schools. So they usually don't have an out-of-state and an in-state tuition. They just have a one flat tuition rate. So please know and be able to differentiate with those as you're comparing colleges. Very important when you're talking about money. Now, there's different ways to pay for school. Now, if you're like my sister Cassandra, who's on here, she could probably afford to pay for her child's college expenses out of pocket without having to get scholarships or any other aid. And I'm joking with her. She's looking at me like, yeah, right. Also, if you have a college savings plan, that's great. Some people tap into their retirement plan. I don't advise it, and I'll talk more about that in that workshop. But parents, you should not be going broke and pulling from your retirement to pay for your child's college tuition. That should be an absolute last resort. Financial aid, we'll talk more about, and gift aid. Gift aid is money you don't have to pay back. Financial aid, it could include student loans and you might have to pay it back. But gift aid, like scholarships and grants, they give you the money and there's no expectation that you pay it back. So know all those different ways in which you can fund your education. Here with financial aid, I mentioned student loans. That's when you go into debt and you graduate and have to pay all those back. Work study, you work while you're in school, and that funding helps offset your tuition bill. Scholarships and grants, that can be considered financial aid as well, fellowships. And also another means is employer educational reimbursement, parents and scholars. If you work somewhere and they offer reimbursement for educational purposes, please take advantage. Also, I want to make sure I mention that as you're applying for federal financial aid, you cannot apply if you don't have that second bullet, the free application for federal student aid. We call it the FAFSA. You have to go to this website, especially as you are a rising senior, and complete your FAFSA in the fall. Don't wait till the spring, in the fall, and make sure that you apply and provide the necessary documents, tax documents, W-2s, etc., to make sure that you can get your student aid report. So once you fill it out, they'll send you back a student aid report, and it'll tell you how much your EFC or expected family contribution is. So you take the school costs $30,000 this year. They say I'm getting $10,000 in financial aid, and now they're expecting me to pay $20,000. You might want to know that up front before you select a school, so that you can find other ways to pay for it. So each year, the federal government itself awards over $120 billion a year. So the money is there, you just have to find it. My preference would be for you to find scholarships where you don't have to pay it back. My philosophy is if you have over a 3.0 or 3.0 or higher, you should not have to pay for college. You should be looking for scholarships in your major based on your academics, your interests, organizations you've been affiliated with, and you should find money that total up to help pay for the cost. Even if you have less than the 3.0 GPA, there's money available. But a lot of scholarships go unclaimed because not a lot of folks are applying. We'll talk about this more too in the college funding and scholarship session. And I would strongly encourage you all to register to attend that one. Don't run from the essays. Make sure that you take the time, draft essays that could likely be reused, and track your progress for all of these efforts. It's very important because essays, like I mentioned earlier, help differentiate you from the other candidates. So if you have a very powerful essay and it's compelling and it is emotionally touching, someone may argue to help get you that funding over somebody else. So more is to come, and we'll talk much more about scholarships as we move forward. If you have questions over where you can find scholarships, I've listed some of the places that I found to be useful and that others I've heard of found to be useful: CAPEX, College Board, FastWeb, Scholly, Scholarship.com, and others. Please consider doing searches here and other places for scholarships. And there's a whole list of scholarships at this green link below on my Invest in Others website that I've collected over time. And if you didn't know, all of us, all 5 of the participating AKA chapters who are hosting this session, we have scholarships too. You have to read each one of our scholarship eligibility requirements, but we each have scholarships that you should at least be made aware of. Most fraternities and sororities have scholarships, religious organizations, professional organizations. Be exhausted. I think this is well worth the time you'll spend looking for money. Next, I want to encourage you to make sure, as I'm bringing my conversation to a close, two things left. Use your time wisely and have a plan. Using your time wisely will help you to have a more deliberate and strategic plan. If you're a high school junior, there are things that you should be doing now to prepare for, or a rising junior, for your senior year next year. You should be making sure that you know how to get your transcripts. You're actively getting ready, if you haven't already, to take the SAT and ACT test, finding out who can write letters, getting involved. As you can see, many of these things that we've already talked about. Your junior year is not too early. Please don't back yourself up your senior year with things that you could have taken care of as a junior. Now, seniors, this is actually, I think, 2 slides. But now you have a sense of urgency. That's why we're going to have a separate webinar just for seniors, because we want to help you navigate through the college admissions process this fall. We want to get you in August to be able to do that. We want you to get your letters of recommendation, make a list, parents, help them this summer. Don't let them off the hook. They have more free time than they probably know what to do with this summer. Have them do some legwork, have them work on their scholar profile, juniors and seniors. Have them register. If you haven't registered as a junior or senior for the SAT and ACT, I would encourage you to do so. Start tracking your progress with some of those things. And I didn't know this until I applied for the FAFSA with my son in particular. If you have a male and he's approaching 18, when you fill out the FAFSA, they're going to ask you if they signed up for the selective service on your FAFSA form. And they're going to want the selective service number. So if you have a son or who's about to become 18 and need to sign up, they don't allow, I don't think they give out federal aid for males 18 and up who have not been registered for the selective service. Didn't know that, wouldn't have known it. And then athletes, this is probably one area that I should have done another session on, but we didn't select this one. But my sons all play sports, and so understanding the NCAA requirements is important. So what I generally say is, parents, if you have scholars, if you're planning on playing collegiate sports eventually when things open up after COVID-19, please go to their website and check what their eligibility requirements are, because you can't wait till your senior year for those either. You will be behind the curveball. And then lastly, as I approach the end of my talk, what I will tell you is that everything that we've talked about is really the culmination of, please have a plan. It can be simple, but it needs to be effective. You need to figure out, what do I need to get accomplished? How much is it going to cost? That's important to parents, even if it's not to the scholars themselves, so they can plan and budget for these things. When do I need to start this activity? When do I need to have it done? And then track your progress. You'll have a sense of pride about how much you can get done. That's going to really help prepare you throughout this process. So finally, I will share with you that it is important to get organized, manage your time, don't waste other people's time, but use the summer as much as possible to get ahead. And because we're doing a lot of things virtually, parents and scholars, please have a joint place where you're saving all of your accounts and your password, username and passwords in a central place. Most people don't think about that. But when you start going to the FAFSA site, the college app, the Black College Common App, all those different sites, you'll realize, wait a minute, I'm losing track of all these username and passwords. So take advantage of that and online resources. It's up to the students and the parents to really support each other through this process, and more importantly, to celebrate your successes all along the way. As you're making progress, please celebrate those. And don't be discouraged should you get a letter back saying, hey, at this time, we're not able to accept you into our university, or we selected someone else for our scholarship. No is just a step away from someone else telling you yes. So with that being said, I thank you very much for your time this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Sandy for her wrap up and closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for that very informative and very empowering presentation. And I know that our audience at home is giving you a virtual applause right now. So thank you once again for that presentation. I'm sure everyone in attendance this evening, our scholars, as well as our parents, have gained some valuable information. And even if you're not a scholar or a parent and you're on this call, I'm sure that you heard something that could benefit another parent or another student or scholar. So we ask that you share this information with others that you know. Tonight's session was just a general session on the college application process. And as Dr. Murray alluded to, we do have future webinars set up that will specifically go into different topics regarding the college application process. And those topics are listed on this screen. Our next session is scheduled for Thursday, July 30th, and that is on strategies taken for the SAT and the ACT. And that webinar is open to both juniors and seniors. And we encourage you to go in tonight and to register, because we do anticipate the seats filling up very quickly. You will receive an email this evening that will have a listing of all of the future webinars and the links to register. So we encourage you to register as soon as possible. Again, our next session is scheduled for Thursday, July 30th. Strategies for taking the SAT and the ACT. And we also ask that you please don't hold on to this information. Please share it with another scholar or another parent that could benefit from attending these sessions. As we continue with our closing and wrap up, I just want to remind everyone that we will be facilitating a question and answer period at the end. So please utilize your chat function to present questions to our presenter, who can answer them at the end, and they will be moderated by our chat moderators. We want to hear from you. We have an evaluation that we are requesting that you complete. We have put a lot of work in planning and putting these webinars together. And so we want to hear what you think. We want to hear what benefited you, or if you have suggestions for changes, we want to hear that from you as well. So we ask that you please complete the Survey Monkey, which will be emailed to you. All registrants will receive an email tonight that will include the link to the Survey Monkey. The link is also listed here on this slide. As I stated before, everyone will receive an email later this evening at the conclusion of our webinar, and it will, in addition to the Survey Monkey link, is also going to include some of the slides from Dr. Murray's presentation this evening, a listing of the future webinars with the dates and the links for registration, as well as useful links for scholarships and other resources. Next slide. The reference materials used for tonight's presentation are listed on this slide, and both of these books were authored by Dr. Murray, College Planning Strategies and College Funding Strategies, with accompanying workbooks that go along with these books. And as you were told when you registered, or received when you were registering for the conference this evening, the first 10 registrants for each AKA chapter will receive a complimentary copy of both of these books and the workbooks that go with them. So each 10 registrants per each AKA chapter, the first 10 registrants per each AKA chapter will receive a complimentary book as well as the workbook. If you're not a recipient of one of the complimentary books, you still have an opportunity to get one. You can purchase both of these books as well as the workbooks at the website listed below, www.investinothers.com. And again, this is just a resource for you to use, some useful links that have been put together to help you in facilitating your college application process, links to the College Board, Invest in Others, Dr. Murray's site, the FAFSA application, which is very important, as well as a Common App and Black College app that Dr. Murray alluded to. So we ask that you please utilize this resource, utilize these links, go into the links and research and discover what you need to know. So now, again, we are at the point where we're going to be facilitating our question and answer period. Please utilize the chat function located at the top right-hand screen and present questions to our presenter this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sandy Jordan. We do have a few questions. Dr. Murray, our first question was, and I know you hinted around on some of this when you discussed what juniors should be doing at this particular time, but when should high school juniors start actually applying to colleges?
Hi, and thank you for that question. My recommendation would be the summer of your rising senior year at the earliest, unless the university allows for otherwise. Not all universities accept college applications at the same time or around the same time of the year. So I would encourage you to specifically check with that college or university to see if they would accept your college application earlier and use that as your guide.
Awesome. Great information there. The next question. Several students did ask, or participants did ask, how many recommendation letters would you suggest they obtain to have on file?
I would suggest that you have at least 2 or 3 from high school instructors, STEM instructors, for example, or instructors. Let's say if you're majoring in graphic design, you may want to consider having your graphic design or IT, something similar with your major, that sort of instructor. Also, I would encourage you to have one from a community leader where you've done volunteer work, and at least one where you've done, if you've coached or been a part of other organizations. What I'll also tell you is there's 2 different types of letter of recommendations. You'll need one type for college admissions. Please accept my recommendation to have Christy attend your university. And then the second type would be for scholarships. I think you should award a scholarship to Christy for X, Y, and Z. So please know when we get to that workshop, we're going to differentiate that out, but there's 2 different types, one for college admissions and one for scholarships.
Awesome, awesome. We have a student who was supposed to be actually participating in an internship this summer. However, due to the current circumstance, they're not able to participate. So what would you suggest that they do to help, enhance their application and help them stand out?
Look for a job, and I don't say that lightly, but if you're a student who still has time, find a job this summer. Look for employment opportunities that are virtual that might get you closer to your career field. My nephew actually had an internship as well, and fortunately for him, his organization allowed them to participate virtually, so he's working remotely, but not everybody had that opportunity. And if your school year in the fall is going to extend to virtually, I would encourage you to volunteer. Find organizations who you can volunteer in terms of an internship and get your experience, because sometimes experience is more important than just the pay. So when you graduate from college, some organizations, they don't care if you worked at McDonald's or made $20 an hour somewhere. They care if you have gained experience in your career field. So even if you have to volunteer a few hours a week, I would encourage you to do so where there are organizations who may allow that in different ways.
Awesome, awesome. And I know that we're in this virtual environment for many folks now. So reach out to those organizations and see what type of virtual opportunities that they have that you can volunteer for as well. So that's great information, definitely. Of course, selecting a major is really a tough one for students. And so one of the questions pertain to a fine arts major. What do you suggest as far as students looking for schools and they're struggling to find out what school they should attend when they're looking to major in a fine art, pursue a fine arts major?
Okay, that's a great question. One, and this is going to sound overly simplified, but Google colleges with fine arts programs. That is a quick way. But also, if you go back earlier in the presentation where I talked about selecting a school, on one of the slides, there was an online tool, and I think it's going to be in your helpful, useful link slides that you'll get. But when you do that, you'll find that there are search tools that allow you to put in a major, And you can put in fine arts and it'll pop up with a list of top schools for fine arts majors. Please know that STEM students, medical students, law students, teachers, those are more common fields. But if you're interested in fine arts, there are universities and colleges out there. I would start with a simple Google or a more advanced online search tool to help you find it. And there's a couple of links in our presentation that'll help you start.
And lastly, this is not a question, but Anika Holden, one of the participants, did share that the ACT is offering the prep course for free. So if you visit their website, there is a free prep course available for students right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Anika, for sharing that. We will be sure to include that in our next presentation coming up here July 30th and pass that along. So we help each other, and I appreciate that because things are changing so much with COVID-19 that we all really have to share information that we have. So I very much appreciate that.
And we have no further questions. So Dr. Murray, I will turn it back over to you for closing.
Okay, so I did see a question about those who registered for this webinar, but they did not register under a particular chapter. If you could, in the chat function, if you know a AKA member, or if you have any other information you'd like to provide us, we will try to connect you with a chapter. Otherwise, the giveaways will have to be given out based on information we have available to us, based on those individuals who we were able to affiliate with the chapter. My apologies for that. Maybe we'll look at giveaways for future webinars as well. All right, so as a reminder, don't forget the survey link is in the chat function, and I'm gonna post it there one more time in case it got lost in the traffic for you. But we thank you very much for your time tonight, and please register for upcoming webinars because we'll be able to go into more details on college funding, SAT and ACT, how to get your letters of recommendation and essays, and many more things, particularly for seniors. So thank you very much. And I'm already starting to see registrations come in. So thank you. We appreciate your time tonight, and give us some feedback because we want to make sure these webinars are valuable to you. Thank you very much.